Yeah.
Anything you want to let us know before we get started, or Armin, do you want to go for it straight away?
No, Cheryl will start. Talk
Yeah,
about
I
the
can.
rules, but very briefly, please. Huh?
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, just give me a
So to
moment.
explain, Cheryl is president of the ISPRS Student Consortium, for those who don't know, okay? So she organized, she's our host, she organized most of it. And we have to be very thankful to her for doing all this work. Now she will explain some of the rules, okay?
Yeah, so thank you
Just
very much.
to complete, we are running Zoom in webinar mode. This is somehow different from the normal meeting mode. So maybe she will explain some of differences.
So thank you very much, Dr. Gruen, for those words. So I would like to formally welcome everyone to the ISPRS SC virtual rooms. And today we are actually celebrating a very special event. And this is a very special edition of the ISPRS virtual rooms. So for those of you who are attending this initiative for the very first time, this was an activity that the consortium came up with during the quarantine season. Like many countries in the world were either on a lockdown or on quarantine last April. So we decided to provide a platform where people can connect. And we decided to continue this initiative because of its success. And this has been a way for us to bridge the generation gap, to have a dynamic learning platform and a venue for our members to meet amazing people in ISPRS and in our profession. So actually, many of us have already met the ISPRS White Elephant Club. So for today, as Dr. Gruen has already mentioned, we are actually attending the virtual rooms in webinar mode. So this is quite different from the Zoom meetings where you can see everyone on video and you have full control of your video and your microphone. For the Zoom webinar, we have two groups of people. There are the panelists and the attendees. So the panelists can share both video and sound, and whereas the attendees can only view the panelists, and we can allow you to talk if you raise your hand, and during the parts of this event where you can raise questions or send your greetings to Dr. Konecny. So we also request all panelists to put their microphone on mute while the presentations are ongoing. So I think this is everything from my side. I think Dr. Christian Heibke, the president of ISPRS, and Dr. Armin Gruen, the president of the White Elephant Club, will now take over to introduce you to this very special event.
Yes, thank you very much, Cheryl. I would like to welcome all of you and those who I don't see right now. As I said before, we have registered about 230 or 240 persons, but they are not all here now. So I'm talking on behalf of the White Elephant Club, and I welcome those who come from the Americas. Good morning, Larry. Those who come from Europe or Near East or Africa with good afternoon, and those who are from Asia with good evening. You all know probably the history of this meeting. Today we should have the ISPS Congress in Nice. And we organized actually, or we planned a session for Gottfried there. Now it was shifted because of Corona, the whole Congress, and we also changed the format of the session. We have, all in all, we have 10 speakers among the panelists, and the other people, the attendees, can, if they want, express themselves afterwards. So basically, we start now with Heibke, Christian Heibke. His presentation will be Gottfried Konecny, from draftsman to Professor Emeritus, 75 years of involvement in photogrammetry. Christian, please go ahead.
Armin, thanks very much for your introduction. First of all, a happy birthday to you, Gottfried. I have tried to capture in something like 10 or so slides your 75 years of a career. Now, thinking about 75 years of a career is a little special per se. And yes, it can be created, it can be described by these photos, which I was able to grab. But I thought I need to give some justification to these 75 years.
Just a second. Can you
we
please
have
switch?
something like a different
Can
screen
you switch
here.
to the presentation mode, Christian? Christian, can you hear me?
Yes, I
Can
can.
you
I
switch?
see the problem.
Yeah,
I'm
okay.
going to share
No,
the
not
other
yet, not yet,
screen.
okay.
This is what I'm told. So which one am I to share? You can say this one, right? And then you.
And the sharing was fine, but the presentation mode was in the preview mode that you have a second screen while you have on, I mean, at least you are showing one screen.
There is a button on the top that says View Options, and I think if you click on the drop-down, it will allow you to change the viewing mode. We can see the right screen, but I think now it's a PowerPoint tab that needs to be opening up just the presentation.
Okay,
Perfect.
good, very good.
Perfect.
As you could hear, we have a few people here who know about PowerPoint also, which comes in very handy at times. Anyway, I was about to justify my title, 75 years. And while I typically, when I do presentations, I put some text, I don't necessarily read all that text. And the one things which are important are the red ones. So spanning the time of 1945 to 2020, that's those 25 years. And we'll come back to the fact that the career is still ongoing later on. The other things you can, or the other images you can see here is, of course, Gottfried, those two people you have always mentioned as your main teachers, Richard Finsterwalder and Fred Doyle. One, of course, from Munich, and the other one from OSU, Columbus. And that allows me to say that about 50 years before there was this debate in Germany, you would have come back from the US with both a master and a diploma engineer degree. So you must have been a little amused when it came to this discussion on a more mainstream. And of course, we all know you spent time in Canada, and you're still spending time in Hanover. Okay. Now, here's another 2 slides to try to express a rather special fact, namely that while you are very much rooted at one place, at the same time, you're known and you're really everywhere at the same time. I've chosen 2 items for that. Fellowships you have obtained from the US, from Canada, from Australia, from the then USSR, and yes, there was actually one from Germany too. It allowed you to go to France, of course, being on the international scheme as well. So that's just one little idea of saying a global scientist, a global citizen. And another example of that is the list of honorary doctorates and professorships, which were bestowed on you. And besides the fact that we can see here everything from Argentina, Canada, China, India, Russia, it occurred to me, what a nice coincidence, that these country names actually also come well within the alphabet, from A to C to I to S to R. So we'll see what comes next. A global scientist, a global citizen. That's, I guess, one of the ways to describe what has been going on in your professional career. You spend time in Canada and you spend time in Hanover. So I have 2 or 3 slides of both of these positions, of these stations, if you like. This slide here shows what you have often referred to as the survey bubble. Now, if you look into this a little more in detail, not the bubble, but the fact that it is there, you had your PhD in the late 50s. You then went to Canada, and it took you something like 2 months or maybe half a year or something to set up a new degree course in Canada. Of course, survey engineering. And it was not just the first degree course in Canada, but it was also a model for instance, Cape Town or Sydney or other countries, other cities, other places around the world. Well, as global as you are, there's not really surprising, is you? So just imagine you finished your degree, and it's not less than a year later, and maybe it's a little more than a year, I don't really care too much. You set up this degree course to take off and to be successful until this very day, of course. At the same time, while at UNB, University of New Brunswick in Canada, of course, there was quite some research to be done. Maybe it's not so well known that you were among the first to deal with line sensors. We've had 3 line sensors later, but back in the 60s, that was part of your work. Analytical plotters is something which has been retired for the last 10 or 20 years, but then it was the big new thing. And well, at that level, maybe it's not surprising that you were also involved in, let's call it planetary remote sensing, the Apollo program. To the older attendees, that of course says a lot, but I guess Apollo is still something people know across all ages. And since you have done some of your studies in southern Germany, not too far away from the Alps, there was of course the link to the mountains. And when it's not the Alps, then it's the highest, I think Mount Kennedy is the highest peak in the Americas, so certainly in North America, which you have been talking about a few times also. Well, time went on, and I'm trying to give this presentation the same speed as you have gone through your career, and you came to Hanover. Of course, a few buzzwords here, and a little photogrammetry took off. I'd like to mention the bundle block adjustment blue, which is also still running, and of course, somebody needs to be mentioned here. This is Carsten Jacobsen. And also analytical plotters were further investigated. The second point will not say too much to the younger generation, but at the time, we're talking, I believe, 1978, Uki Halava and Gilbert Holbrow were like the stars on the photogrammetry heaven, if you like, worldwide. Both of them spent a number of months, maybe even a year, at IPI at the time. And again, 1978, that's when talk in Hanover dealt about digital components in photogrammetry, right? It was like 20 years before the digital cameras came on. There was the Sonderforschungsbereich, a big coordinated research project in Germany. But I think the 2 important parts here I haven't mentioned yet is remote sensing. To many, you are considered the father of European remote sensing. And already then, it wasn't remote sensing to get pictures of the Earth, but it was remote sensing for sustainable development. It was remote sensing for food security, land degradation, terms which now in the scope of the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations, sound very familiar, except that we are more than 20 years ago here. And the second point, which really is intertwined in the first one, is yes, photogrammetry, but not for its own sakes. Photogrammetry and beyond. There is a link to cadastre, there's a link to land information systems, to GIS, and not only did you talk about it, but you also executed projects. In the time in Hanover, of course, one needs to talk about the ISPRS Congress. And yes, normally we would have been attending the ISPRS Congress 2020 in Nice as we speak. Many of you will, but not all of you will know that the term remote sensing was actually introduced during the Congress 1980 in Hamburg, which of course, the Congress director was Gottfried Konecny. To the lower left, you see him talking to Fritz Ackermann, another very well-known and even older gentleman with a tremendous influence in analytical photogrammetry and photogrammetry as such. And I remember 10 years ago, Gottfried, when we had a bit of a talk for your 80th birthday, one of the participants said that there was in photogrammetry and remote sensing a very, very easy equation. And that would read photogrammetry and remote sensing equals Gottfried Konecny and Fritz Ackermann. Now, I'm not the one to say whether this equation can be mathematically proven right or wrong, but it does give, of course, ample recognition to you. And I'm not sure whether Professor Ackermann is able to attend this session, but if he does, we'll send his best greeting, our best greetings to him also. There was another item in the ISPRS Congress, and that was that we had these proceedings for the first time. And I do know that there was a number of groups who were more than happy that on the way back from Hamburg to where they would live, they could all carry back home these 30 kilos of proceedings. They didn't exist before. Another project which is worth mentioning here is the first photogrammetric measurement campaign, or Earth observation campaign, if you like, on the space shuttle. This is in 1983. You see the details, and to the very day, this camera here sits in the Institute. It was given to you, I believe, to your 75th birthday by DLR, who was, of course, then one of the main contributors to this session. It is not the camera which was actually flown in space, but it's a flight model which we can still see in the Institute as we go by. Now, 40 years, 4 slides. What happened since your, and I'm hesitating to say retirement because you never retire, do you? So you keep on working. You were an elder statesman in photogrammetry and remote sensing and geospatial information science, but not only the sciences, of course, but also in the practice and the consultancy and all the rest of it. And here I've also depicted a few pictures. I understand there was a little more time for family and friends since the last 20+ years. And while doing so, of course, you kept working, as I mentioned. So one activity I was able to join in myself, and so was, of course, Karsten Jakobsen, who we see here, was an in situ mine inspection. You all know that remote sensing needs in situ measurements. And it's all neat and nice and fine and clean, at least before the inspection. Once done, things may sometimes turn out a little different. But we certainly had good fun, and we learned a lot. Well, I certainly did. Something else I saw you doing increasingly so was taking pictures. But not only that, but you typically also have a good comment for the pictures you would have taken. Here, for instance, this is, well, some people would know that the German parliament, that would have been back in 1995, got covered, let me say, by Crystal, one of the world famous artists we have. He actually passed away, I believe, last week or very recently. Anyway, you took this picture and gave it to me with the comment, okay, we'll have Christo as well. Nearly. Coming to the current events of your career, you're involved, among others, at mapping the Himalayan mountain peaks at the moment, all 14 or 15 of them. These pictures are taken from the applications. It's, as I mentioned, an ongoing project, and it is actually ongoing. This slide here covers results. Gottfried, you haven't seen them yet because they actually arrived 2 hours ago. It shows the Nanga Parbat. Obviously, this is with reference to Zhangji, who I saw in the list of panelists already. Zhangji, maybe you want to say a little more about this later on. These are brand new, right out of the press, the virtual press, of course. And thanks very much to our Chinese colleagues, to Zhangji, for selecting Nanga Parbat first. There are stories about Nanga Parbat, which I don't have time to mention right now, but it is a special mountain for you. So, this tries to sum it up, and such summaries are never complete. I put a lot of, well, descriptions of your personality. I'll leave it for people to read, but I do want to point out that whenever I had contact with you, I felt it was across all ages. It was across the globe, and I've emphasized that before. And it was for actually all people, for all people alike. There was no distinction between one and the other. And maybe that is one of the messages we can all try to follow. We can all try to learn. A visionary independent leader, I put, and a missionary of global mapping. You would never give in. You would always go for this mission of global, of international mapping. And in fact, many people know you still do. Now, when it comes to my own experience, I've always enjoyed your advice and your support. I'll have to say I've always enjoyed the fact that while you gave me advice and support, you never insisted. It was for me to decide, and the advice typically was a very, very good one, and the support in any case. So thanks for that. It's not self-understood, and it's been the fact since day one. So with that, I'd like to wish you a very happy birthday. Thanks very much for all you've done for me, for us, and for the world. And all the best for the future. And everybody around you, of course. I'd like to extend best wishes also from your former institute. Somebody suggested we need to sing a song like Happy Birthday. Now, we thought about this and decided that we might as well try to do something very much along those lines. So, Cheryl, do you want to give it a go and start this thing, or shall I do it? So with that, we come to the more formal session of the formal part of the session. And we'll start off with Armin Grün from ETH Zurich, who is going to share with us a story of elephants and crocodiles, the crossing of lifelines. Armin, of course, has been a professor of photogrammetry at ETH for a very long time. He has a close connection to OSU as well, to Ohio State University. And he's been an emeritus professor for maybe 10 years or close to 10 years, I would think. Besides that, he's also the president, and we've heard that before, the president of the White Elephant Club. and I'm sure he's going to tell us a little bit about what white elephants are, and some of you may be surprised to hear what they are. With that, I'll turn it over to you, Armin, and if you want to share your screen with us and get started. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Christian. Can you see my screen, my presentation?
Yes.
I shared it already. Can you see it?
Yes.
Yes, we can see.
Okay, good. So I talk about elephants and crocodiles and about the convergence of lifelines. I just will explain first a little bit about the White Elephant Club, because I think not everybody knows these details. It was established 2004 in Istanbul during the Congress, the ISPRS Congress. And we have a president, a secretary, and a honorary president, who is Gottfried Konecny. Now, why white elephant? There's a parable about elephant and crocodiles, which Gottfried told us very often before this club was established. And it goes like this. Elephants are animals who work very hard for their living, for their food, and they're elegant and they are good animals. And as opposed to this, crocodiles are just sitting in a pond waiting for the bait to come along and catch it. So he always proposed that we should be elephants rather than crocodiles. In parallel, he had the idea of a kind of a Club of Rome. He took Club of Rome as a model, as an example. And as you may know, they published already in the year 68, the report about the limits to growth. And this was a basis for all the studies about environmental and climate issues that came later. And like the Club of Rome, we wanted to have something which he wanted to call originally Club of Istanbul. Then Shunji stepped in with his connections to Thailand. This is why I have here a picture of two Thai colleagues, Visha and Suvit, from the council meeting in Chiang Mai. So Shunji brought in the idea of white elephant, and we accepted and we liked it. So this is how it came about. Now, we have 4 goals in this club, and one is to bridge the gap between generations, to support young people, and I like this one very much. It visualizes our situation where we like to support young students, young people. Now, about convergence of lifelines. When I studied Gottfried's CV in detail, I found out that there are so many similarities to my own. I mean, Gottfried was always ahead in time, ahead with his work and so forth. But what I try here is to connect his own timeline to my timeline. He was born not too far away from my hometown, Berneck, in northern Bavaria, and especially after he came to West Germany as a refugee in '46, he came very close to my hometown, spent a few years there. I just, Gottfried, for you, mention Schnabelweit, Greußen, Pegnitz, you know all these small towns as I do. So there's a time delay of 14 years. And this time delay, plus minus 1 or 2 years, goes through all our career up to the end. So the surveying job he took over in '45, I got in touch with surveying at high school, '61. Then he worked as a diploma engineer, or studied diploma engineer at TH Munich from 50 to 54. I did it from 63, 68. If you take difference, you get again these 14 years. He took an internship in Finland. I took one in Turkey. 59 his, 66 mine. I was not at OSU at this time, but I was an assistant like him at TH Munich, Technische Hochschule München, 57 to 69. And did the PhD. He did his PhD in Munich, also 59. I did my PhD 74. Then we have the work as a chief engineer or assistant professor. In his case, 59, my case, 74. The start as a full professor in Hanover, my start in Zurich. The ISPRS involvement, the first serious involvement, he as a Congress director, me as a Commission 5 president. The China activities, Darren Lee will talk more about this, 78, me 88. So now the thing is converging in terms on the timeline a little bit. You know, here we have only 10-year difference. Honorary professorship of Wuhan University, 86, 95, only 9 years. And finally, it converges in the year 2004 at the foundation of the White Elephant Club. Now, from now on, I just show you a few pictures to support what I've said before. Sorry, Gottfried, I have no pictures from Munich, but I'm sure you are aware of this instrument, this Photogrammetry Camera TAF, terrestrische Ausrüstung Finsterwalder. You must have used it. I used it a lot, as you can see, as a student, as a PhD student. And at those times, when we had our labs, our field work, smoking pipes and drinking from the bottled beer, even a girl, was quite common, okay? Now, if I look at these pictures, I realize why I have problem with my back nowadays. Now, this is a very early picture from a visit to China of a German delegation, 1979. If you look at the Chinese colleagues, they're all wearing what we used to call the Mao dress in blue, essentially. In the first row, most of these people are from Germany. You see Gottfried, Fritz Ackermann, H.K. Meyer from Zeiss Oberkochen, Seber, Dr. Seber, Dr. Reinhardt, and a few other people. So this was, I think, Gottfried, your second visit to China. 1 year before you have been there. Really in detail, I learned about you, and I met you in 1980 at the Congress that was mentioned before, where China was admitted to the ISPRS, and also ISP, photogrammetry, was extended towards remote sensing. Actually, what I want to mention here is I received the Otto von Gruber Award, and there was also the little Gottfried at this ceremony, Gottfried, the son of our Gottfried. And little Gottfried was, I think, 14 years old, and he had a camera, and he took pictures, and he told me, I will send you pictures of this event. Gottfried, I'm still waiting for these pictures, but I still would like to have them. Okay, 2 pictures from OSU. Gottfried, you remember your previous professors here. And further down, this was a picture of 1981, almost a generation later. But you still have Professor Urho Uotila, Dick Rapp, and Dean Merchant, for instance, in the picture. This was 1988, when Gottfried was still on council, and I was Commission 5 President. This was my first visit to China, 1988. I visited, among other places, Chengdu Institute of Surveying and Mapping, and I gave 7 presentations. At this time, our Chinese colleagues still knew how to squeeze things out of us. And I realized Gottfried was there 10 years ago already. This is 1988, after I took over the Commission 5. We had a council and commission president meeting in Zurich. And 2 years later, we had the Commission 5 symposium, Photogrammetry meets machine vision. And this picture down here is a very precious for me, because here you see Kenneth Torligat and Einari Kilpeli together with Gottfried. Both are not with us anymore, unfortunately. And this was 96 in Wuhan, where we celebrated Professor Wang's 90 years. And you see a few people who you know in the pictures. This was in the preparation and at the Vienna Congress 1996. And further up right, there's a picture from Wuhan where Gottfried gave a speech to about 5,000 people, we were told. He had an interpreter with him. Now, 2004 has been mentioned as a date for the establishment of the White Elephant Club. And Gottfried, if you remember, we were still heavy in smoking cigars. I think this is over now, but it was a good time. It was a good period. Leshan Buddha, close to Chengdu, 2006. And our plan was actually to go to Tibet, to Lhasa, but we had to take a medical exam at Chengdu Hospital. And as a result of this, Gottfried was unfortunately not allowed to continue, but he made it a year later through the help of Lee Darren. 2007 in Urumqi, Sherman Wu celebrated 90 years. And Gottfried, you should have such a crown, your birthday. On the same trip, we went to Kashgar 2007 and had a good time there. Kashgar is on the Silk Road, the last stop on the Chinese part of the Silk Road in Xinjiang. A very interesting city. Wuhan 2009, Professor Ackermann celebrated 80 years. This is the White Elephant Seminar speakers, also 2009. These are group photos from the Beijing ISPRS Congress, Melbourne 2012, and Vienna 2010. In Melbourne, we accepted the first female member of White Elephant, Margaret. Welcome again. And this is in Novosibirsk 2013 and Istanbul 2014. And another picture of White Elephant seminar speakers. Now, the final event, the most recent event, was this conference in Guilin, where we also celebrate a few birthdays, and we really had a good time. And I have to thank again Darren Lee and our other Chinese friends for setting it up. It was really great, and you see people are very happy. And Gottfried is in the center of that group. And he gave his speech, what is a proposal, how to write a proposal in the White Elephant seminar. And we had a wonderful trip on the Lee River with Gottfried and the supporting folks. And finally, happy birthday again, Gottfried, from all of us. I don't know if you remember this elephant. It was in Sri Lanka, 2008. And if you ask for a suggestion for the future, I know that you are interested in the history of philosophy and the religions. So I refer to a phrase that is handed down from Buddha And I quote, "Don't cry over the past, it's gone. Don't stress about the future, it hasn't arrived yet. Live in the present and make it beautiful. Despite of Corona problem, please follow the rule of Buddha, the advice of Buddha." Thank you very much to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Armin, for this very colorful presentation of those converging lifelines. Obviously, this is not a scientific session. We're not going to have questions and answers, and we're not going to scrutinize the methodologies being presented. Rather, I'd like to now invite Shunji Murai to give his presentation. Shunji, for those of you who don't know, a former ISPRS president as much as Gottfried, a former Congress director as much as Gottfried, and a very eminent scientist in photogrammetry and remote sensing, in many other aspects. And of course, Shunji Murai, Professor Emeritus from the University of Tokyo. Shunji, I'd like to ask you for your presentation.
Thank you, Christian. Armin, can you switch off your screen? So may I share the screen?
Yes, I switch off.
Okay.
Okay.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody from Tokyo. Good evening. It is already sleeping time for me, but I try to stay here until I finish my presentation. This is the young time of the Gottfried, 1993, Glasgow. This is the Gottfried style, jacket, and look at the socks. He always the wool socks. That is the protecting his maybe temperature. So, dear Gottfried, congratulations for your 90th birthday. You are always my lighthouse since 1984, 36 years ago. So Chinese letter means the congratulations 90th anniversary. Then this is the Japanese sakura, cherry blossom. Lesson from Gottfried in my life. I like to explain many things, but just only essence. Gottfried has been my mentor as he taught me how to contribute to international community, particularly ISPRS. Frankly speaking, Japanese are not international even now. I could become international due to Gottfried. Gottfried invited Kenneth Torregard and me to his hotel room at midnight in Kyoto in 1987, a year in advance to 1988 Kyoto Congress. I was the Congress director, and we enjoyed the karaoke bar until the midnight. Then after we came back, I started to sleep, but Gottfried called me, please come to my room. And he taught us, Kenneth and me, how to manage the ISPRS Council under his philosophy. Elephants and crocodile, already Ami explained. Then Gottfried mentioned very frankly, Kenneth and Shunji, you will become the president in future. Don't forget the philosophy, elephant and crocodile. So crocodile, those who steal the fruitful result from the others without working. Elephants, those who create fruitful result by working hard. So he mentioned strongly, don't include any crocodile into ISPRS Council. but only invite elephants. This is very strong, the suggestion to me. Very fortunately, when I became the president, my team were all elephants. Then I did know the Gottfried since the 1972 when I joined the first time the ISP Congress in Ottawa. But I started to communicate very closely with the Gottfried when I became the council member as the Congress director in 1984. I was so young. Look at the picture. Gottfried and also Fred Doyle and George Zarzinski there. Already two gentlemen passed away. But the Gottfried at the first council meeting, oh, we are like a family. Okay, please call each other the first name. Otherwise, for Japanese tradition, I have to say Professor Konecny, but very frankly, Gottfried requested me to call him Gottfried only. Gottfried is always very kind to me. This is the picture in Manaus, Brazil. And this is the ISPRS Council members when Gottfried was president. You see, this is me, George, John Trinda, Kenneth, Gottfried, and Giovanna Triatti from Italy. And we are very lucky to have two giants. One is Fred Doyle, the teacher of Gottfried, the Army mentioned, and Gottfried. They introduced the remote sensing from ISP to ISPRS in 1980. So this is the great reform of our society. Gottfried always supported me and my wife Taiko during I was the ISPRS president. So as I told you, we are not always elephant, but our elephant includes the first ladies, accompanying person like Evelyn, the wife of Lori Fritz, and my wife put in kimono in Vienna in 1996. So I have to thank Gottfried to guide us the very good society team. The Army was the second vice president after invited Gottfried and Craig Fraser. What is that? What is very strange voice. Once I invited Gottfried and Craig Fraser to workshop in Bhutan because I wanted to introduce more Asia to Western people. So Bhutan is a very, very rare and very interesting country. Then Gottfried was not easy to climb up to the holy Buddha temple built on the cliff. And Clive and me came down in time, but Gottfried never gave up, but arrived at hotel 2 hours later because it was dark without light. So he has a guide, but he succeeded to come back. So we are very worried about the Gottfried because he did not come back until the 2 hours later. So that is the I learned the Gottfried is never give up person. Then my impressions with Gottfried Gottfried was every time and everywhere. I have never seen such a person like Gottfried, who traveled so many times and participated in so many congresses, symposia, workshops, and seminars, and including UN meetings and so on. So when I went to the travel overseas, Gottfried was always there. So that means the Gottfried was every time and everywhere. And Gottfried was always in the center of fun and laughter. He made a very good joke, particularly international joke. So he started to laugh from him, but it was very interesting. He is always be a center of fun and laughter. Gottfried has the computer memory. Very astonishingly, he remembers many things. Name of person, name of town, country, and events. So just like a computer memory. Gottfried was a man who never changed his own routine. He always make me enjoy cigar after party or after dinner, and he never changed his style. And Gottfried is the real stylist, I mean. So this is the very interesting impression to me. And also I try to follow his lifestyle. This is my summer house in Karuizawa in Japan. My wife Taiko and I wish you long life. I'm sure you can live long as you receive the Japanese sake, a symbol of long life. Once, Gottfried visited my private house in Tokyo in 1989 and received the Japanese sake from Taiko like this. So this is the Japanese sake style, we pour each other. This is never allowed in the Corona time. But Taiko, very pleased to serve the Japanese sake to Gottfried. So thank you very much for joining my presentation. I will not be able to stay until the end because this is already sleeping time. But I try to stay as long as I can. And good evening, everybody. And see you possibly next year in Nice, France. See you again.
Kunji, thank you very much for your very kind presentation. Again, very many images, and one could see very many memories which you have shared with Gottfried. With that, we'll come to you, Larry. Your wife was already mentioned, and now here's the real man, Larry Fritz. Him also very much involved in ISPRS, president in the last century, late in the last century, I believe. Congress director of the 1992 Congress in Washington, D.C. He has a career in industry, not in university, which is unique in terms of people serving ISPRS. And I'm sure you have lots of stories to tell us, Larry. The floor is yours. It would be helpful.
I had to unmute. I'm sorry there. Thank you, Christian. And happy birthday, Gottfried. And a good day or good evening to everyone. I hope you all are healthy and COVID-19 free. And I'd like to give you a lot of memories. And let me share my screen. As you know or will know today, Gottfried's been very actively contributed to ISPRS growth and its influence over the past 60 years. and he continues to this day to share his knowledge and expertise as an active participant in our society. Unfortunately, these days, I rarely see Gottfried, as my personal involvement with the society has diminished in my years of retirement, but I sincerely appreciate his devotion to continually promote the advancement of our profession. My earliest recollection of my personal interaction with Gottfried was at the September 1978 Commission 2 Symposium in Paris, where we were both participants in a panel discussion on the future of analytical instruments. And then just by chance, we met again in Rome in 1979 when our paths crossed. And I was there meeting representatives of OMI, Attica Meccanica Italiana, a major photogrammetric instrument maker, to oversee the design and development of the National Ocean Survey analytical plotter for the Coast and Geodetic Survey. It was the first ever analytical stereo plotter to employ stereo superimposition to accurately verify digitally compiled data with its source imagery. And at that Rome meeting, our discussion quickly evolved into sharing our common research interests in advancing developments in the hardware and software for analytical stereo plotters. And it was a very timely and fruitful meeting for me, because at that time, I was the ASP director responsible for conducting the Analytical Plotter Symposium and Workshop that was slated to convene in April 1980, just 9 months after we were meeting. And it was immediately clear to me that Gottfried's extensive knowledge and his experience with analytical plotters was unique and invaluable. So I suggested that it would be wonderful he would give me if he would give a keynote tutorial on analytical plotters at the symposium workshop. And he promptly and willingly agreed to do so, even though his enormous Congress director responsibilities would be at their utmost intensity, as a Hamburg Congress would occur less than 2 months after the analytical plotter symposium and workshop. That unselfish act of his of sharing his knowledge with others exemplifies his career in contributing to the success of not only these society events, but to many other endeavors of the ISPRS. The 1960s and 1970s were transitional years for the photogrammetric community, led by the adoption of computers, birthing computational programs, and the beginning of replacement of traditional analog restitution devices with analytical and hybrid instruments. And it was during his tenure at the University of New Brunswick that Gottfried was officially enlisted into ISPRS activities, with his appointment as a 1960 to 1964 Commission 6 national member from Canada. That was 60 years ago. Canada reappointed him again for the same position for the 64-68 term. And his first ISPRS Congress was at the 1964 Lisbon, Portugal Congress. At New Brunswick, Gottfried had valuable interactions with Uki Halava, the inventor of the analytical stereo plotter, who at that time was advancing development of the AP1 prototype at the National Research Council of Canada. In his sabbatical year at NASA in 1966, Gottfried had the opportunity to work on the Apollo program, mapping lunar sites and gaining significant computer expertise. His interactions with Halava and NASA prompted him to bring his software and hardware knowledge to the University of Hanover for the development of blue software for aerotriangulation and analytical plotter advancements. And it also led to his positive influence on the German Space Agency to develop metric cameras for the mapping of Earth from space. During the 1972 to 1976 period, he served as president of the German Society and also as chairman of the ISP Working Group on Geometry of Remote Sensing Systems. He followed on as vice president of the German Society from 76 to 1980. His active promotion of the mapping and imaging sciences was rewarded with his selection by the German Society, and they nominated him to be an ISPRS council term for 1976 to 1980. And he became, let me see, At 1976 Helsinki Congress, he was elected by the General Assembly to serve as the Congress Director in Hamburg for 1980. I highlighted the word rewarded because he subsequently shared with me that being Congress Director is like leading a three-ring circus. And I later learned this was very sage and valuable and really a true observation. During his service from 1976 to 1992, he served on ISPRS Council as Congress Director, Secretary General, President, First Vice President. And ever since, Gottfried's been instrumental in fostering cooperation between organizations in building bridges with developing countries and regions for tech transfer and education and theory applications and status of our profession. And after his 16 leadership years on the ISPRS Council, he served the next 8 years as chairman of the ISPRS Intercommission Working Group on Mapping from Space. And his leadership style set an example for others in ISPRS to emulate. In 1988, in his presidential address, Kenneth Tollegard stated very aptly about his predecessor. He said, "Gottfried, I have now had the privilege to work with you in council for 4 years. I have learned very much under your leadership. I have learned to work for the ultimate goal, to look for the essential, not to get lost in detail. I've learned to find the largest common dividend among everybody's interest on what they have in common." Good commendation from Kenneth, and also from what Shunji just told us here as well. Gottfried's been instrumental in promoting recognition of remote sensing presence in society. He strongly influenced the name change from ISP to ISPRS in 1980. And then in 1986, he single-handedly brought together representatives of international societies, regional associations, national aerospace agencies, UN organizations, national academies of science, private corporations, and other related organizations into a common umbrella organization called JOBRACA, the Joint Board of Remote Sensing Activities. During the same period, he was a unifying force in promoting the activities of IRSEL, the European Association of Remote Sensing Laboratories. These early collaborative efforts were invaluable for ISPRS leadership for joining with our sister societies into forming the International Union of Surveys and Mapping, which has now evolved into one of the 3 networks formally recognized by the UN Committee of Experts for Global Geospatial Information Management. Through the years, his personal diplomacy has influenced many developing nations into joining ISPRS as ordinary or regional members. He's been the mentor of all subsequent council members. Shunji Murai, as you've just heard, often credits Gottfried as his father, whose leadership had a major influence on how to activate and organize the Asian photogrammetric and remote sensing community, and to become an effective and leading contributor to the ISPRS mission. I believe 2020 now marks the 30th year of success for the Asian Remote Sensing Conference, and now Shunji is the Asian ambassador of our profession. In 1987, a significant global news-breaking event was the convening of the ISPRS Intercommission Working Group Seminar on Space Photography in Leipzig, East Germany. The event was conceived by Gottfried and hosted by Professor Klaus Schangeles in the waning years of the Cold War. It was attended by Russian and Eastern Bloc country representatives and 4 ISPRS participants from the West, President Konecny, Treasurer Giovanna Togliatti, past President Fred Doyle, and myself as Commission 2 President. And it was at this ISPRS event that both sides openly shared for the first time to the world their high-resolution images from space and discussed technological capabilities for the benefit of peace for humankind. The conference was a scientific and diplomatic success, due largely to Gottfried's bridge-building efforts. As well as being an outstanding professor at the University of New Brunswick and the University of Hanover, Gottfried has served as German delegate and an international consultant for GTZ, the German Ministry for Technical Cooperation, DLR, the German Space Agency, and the German Federal Ministry of Research and Technology, as well as for other numerous agencies, companies, and projects in over 20 countries, as well as for the UN. And for many decades, Gottfried has been a German and ISPRS representative to the UN regional cartographic conferences, and he has and still gives lectures on ISPRS topics in innumerable countries. On a less professional note, I can attest to Gottfried's social skills and antics, and I thought I'd share a few of them with you. Such as in Natal, Brazil, back in 1998, we went, council was off by our host, took us to out to the sand dunes in Natal, and Gottfried gave the experience of ziplining down several hundreds of meters, but backwards, from a very high sand dune into a Brazilian lake, to the amazement of everybody that was present. He fortunately survived. Then at his Hamburg Congress, he demonstrated his generosity by handing out wads of event fund money for food and drinks to delegates from developing countries, and eventually showered the atrium of this fabric music hall. By the way, that's where the Beatles started, with surplus fund money to the pleasure of everybody that attended. And you can just picture this fund money floating through the air there. Then at a March 1992 Glasgow, Scotland Council meeting, he had a tendency to have a lot of cigars during our meetings, but he finally had overdone it, and we banished him off to a far corner of the meeting room when the smoke from his Cuban cigars became overwhelming. After a July 1989 IGARS and Joe Brasa meeting in Vancouver, Canada, he convinced several of us to go to his favorite Chinese restaurant to eat king crab legs, only to find out the supply was very limited and not enough to serve us all. And Gottfried promptly exhibited his best diplomatic skills to have the proprietor convince his competitor restaurant to send over more crab legs for our eating pleasure. And he often takes home a travel gift for his lovely wife, Liesel, such as a handmade quilt every time he goes to a UN meeting in New York City. And even once when we were in Xi'an, China, he bought a life-size, several hundred-pound replica terracotta warrior. And although he had that one shipped back because he just couldn't carry that much weight. At this time, in fact, please let me mention that Liesel has been the power behind the throne. And for all of us in ISPRS, we send our best gratitude for sharing to Liesel, for sharing Gottfried with us, and for sacrificing all the time we've taken from her through the years. And finally, it's noticeable to note how Gottfried has magically employed his ingenuity in managing travel passports to enter nations without visa, such as from Saudi Arabia to US, or from Brazil to Argentina, or convincing border guards to allow he and I to cross without our passports from Nepal to Tibet, and back. Obviously, he traveled worldwide extensively as an educator, lecturer, representative, and delegate, as those who have served on ISPRS Council can attest. I recall how John Trinder and I would often compare notes of where we had traveled in our council days, and we would marvel and speculate as to which countries we might have been where Gottfried had not been. As I recall, we believe the only place he may not have traveled to is Easter Island. I'm sure he's traveled to more than 150 countries. In fact, just a few years ago, I just found out now it was 2002. It's even time flies. We heard that Chunji and Armin had traveled to Bhutan and accompanied, of course, with Gottfried. We could go on many hours and identify his influential presence and serving our global community. No matter the time or the place, Gottfried has always been willing to answer the call. When I was ISP president, I convened the ISPRS strategic planning meeting for charting the future of our society with our 6 council members representing the world's major continents. And it was Gottfried who answered my call for a meeting facilitator to keep us on track and to help consolidate our varied views on the future path of ISPRS. I sincerely thank him for serving so brilliantly as our independent and unbiased facilitator. These are just a few of Gottfried's many contributions to our society, which support my contention that demonstrate that he truly deserves to be honored as the ambassador of our profession. Thank you, Gottfried, and we're blessed to have you as a dear friend and colleague. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. A very thoughtful presentation on those last 40 years, 50 years?
60 years.
60 years, thank you.
60 years. 1960, he was actually appointed officially by Canada to be ISPRS national member from Canada.
60 years. Some of us still have to live to come to 60, and here's a career of 60 plus. Larry, thanks very much for your contribution. Very much appreciate that, and have a nice day. It's got to be early in the morning on your part of the globe.
I'm enjoying
the
session.
Thank you. With that, we'll come to China. The country was mentioned a few times already. Professor Li
Yes,
Deren,
he's ready.
course. Oh, he is ready. He's going for it.
He's ready.
Chinese time. Deren, all over to you.
Hello, dear Christian. Everybody, we are very happy to join this very important event for Gottfried 90 years birthday. We are Chinese colleagues, all to wish him the happy life, long life, the happy birthday. Now we will give the shortly PPT with some of the voice together. I would invite you to enjoy this small program. Thank you. Please now.
Gottfried is our best friend in photogrammetry and remote sensing of China. He actively promotes the development of photogrammetry and remote sensing education in China, and firmly supports China's participation in the activities of the International Society for Photogrammetry and Remote Sensing. He vigorously promotes the research of photogrammetry and remote sensing in China to catch up with the world level, and he has a thriving friendship with Chinese scholars in photogrammetry and remote sensing. In 1978, he visited China for the first time and made a special trip to Wuhan to visit Professor Wang Zhizhuo. In 1979, he visited China again with a German surveying and mapping delegation. In 1980, he visited the Wuhan Institute of Surveying and Mapping to give lectures for about 2 weeks in photogrammetry and remote sensing. He provided full scholarships for students to study at Leibniz University Hanover in the 1980s, and since then, he continuously supported China for the photogrammetry and remote sensing education and research. Then, let's follow Gottfried's footmarks in China.
Easy stuff.
Right.
中国摄影测量与遥感全体同仁，著康奈斯尼教授，福如东海，寿比南山。Wish Professor Konecny may his fortune be as boundless as the East Sea and live a long and happy life.
Thank you. And I want to also say some very short story to our good friend, good teacher, and good colleagues, the Gottfried. I remember the first thing was in the year 1980. You came to have for your lecture, 2 weeks lecture. I heard over there, the whole room, the full the people, more than 300 people hear your lecture. And also since then, you ask us to send young people to Hanover, follow you for doctor study. Many Chinese got this chance to visit your institution. Also in the year 1984, Zhang Zhushen visited your institution. You asked me to come from Stuttgart to Hanover. We had very good time in your institution. That was in the year 1984. After Kyoto Congress, I was appointed as the Commission 3 president. But at that time, China has no money for me to go abroad for the ISPRS the activities. You find a solution for me. You ask the Volkswagen Stiftung some money prepared with the Jacobson. You ask me to visit some place, then go to your institution, then you will give me the money for my air tickets, go to everywhere. I remember this story. And you remember this story? And also Jacobson also asked me to pay money for me. This is very important at that times. And the next story is to visit Tibet from the Chengdu in the year 2006. We have to visit the doctor to check our body, but the doctor say you had a little problem with your body, so I call your son to America. Your son said me to let her give up this time, but the next year you go alone to visit Tibet. And I find you are very, very strong people. And there's some story, but I cannot here to mention a lot. But anyway, I would like to say Chinese people all to like you, love you, and we wish you will have your 100 years birthday. We invite you to come to China again. Best wishes to you. Good, healthy, long life. Thank you.
Very great contribution. Thanks very much, Leader Ren. That was a very Austrian Chinese international contribution to this very international setting. We were just about to start dancing when we heard the waltz, but we're not allowed to do that at the moment. So of course we didn't. We all kept our distance. Anyway, thanks very much for this contribution from China. we jump around the world, back
Thank
to
you.
Europe for this time. Lena, it's your time. Lena Halunova, who is an ISPRS Council now, who's obviously been the Congress Director of the last Congress in 2016. And we're eager to hear what you have to share with us, Lena. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Can you see my screen?
So far, what we're seeing is a white screen.
Sorry, so just back. I'll try to. Oh. Is it now better?
At least I can see it now, yes.
Yes,
Okay.
we can see your screen.
Perfect. So thank you for invitation, especially Armin, that he asked me if I would like to say a few words about Gottfried, and what just struck me to say about his intent, whole life intent, I would say, to put people together. So I would start and at ISPRS and follow in other 2 or 3 topics. So as far as I have ISPRS, he was involved already since 1972 as a chairman of working group Commission 3, dedicated to geometry of remote sensing systems. But he didn't stop his activities, and he's still active as a vice chair of working group 4, number 2, and his activity is valid until next year because of the postponement of the Congress. And he was elected as Congress director, so his career from working group chairman continued to a Congress director position, Secretary General, President, and first Vice President. And then he was thanked by the society, and he became honorary member. And in his position of being a council member, he attracted many countries. As you can see from the period being Congress director, it was China, Republic of Korea, Hong Kong, New Zealand, Madagascar, Popular Republic of Congo, and Peru who became members. And I'm sure he had a good part of energy he invested to. And it appeared again during his second period of the council member, when Bolivia, Ethiopia, Tanzania, Uruguay, Zaire, in Colombia became members of ISPRS. And it continued again in the last period of this highest period as a president. So it was Ivory Coast, Kenya, Malawi, Mongolia, Qatar, and United Arab Emirates. So this is a great number of countries which strengthened the society as a membership society. And I cannot say also something different, and this is what he established, and I mean ISPRS established under his presidency, and it was a new category of regional members. And first associations who became regional members were from Europe, ERSL, I will mention later, and Asia, Latin America, and Africa. So these 4 associations which connected local members or international members in individual world regions. So that was thanks to him. We have a different type of membership, and nowadays ISPRS has 14 regional members. And there is another group of associations which he was involved, and that was the association I met him for the first time, and it was in ERSA, European Association of Remote Sensing Laboratories. This is a much younger association than ISPRS. It was founded in 1977 with the support of ESA, Council of Europe, and European Commission. And you can see that his activities were split not only to ISPRS and to ERSL, but later on I will mention other activities. And then we will see that between 1980 and 1985, he became chairman of working group. So he also implemented a new type of structure of IRSL, and it was to create working groups. And he focused on space and cartography with his working group. And he was elected as vice chairman. So 12 years after foundation of IRSL, he became a vice chairman for the first period 1989 and till 1991, and then 1991 to 1993. Then he became and was elected chairman. He was awarded again by honorary membership. He was again very active as far as attracting people from different countries, even from different continents, to European Association. So he invited people from Syria, from Tunisia, and he was, I think, the main person who caused that there was a first symposium of IRSL in Malta. Another topic which I wanted to mention is his cooperation with United Nations. I just picked out a few things, few items, I would say. It was a UN development project already in 1973. There were his activities in United Nations cartographic conferences, which he has regularly attended. And then in the last years, between 2012 and 2015, he processed with the support of Hanover University, a big project, UNGGIM ISPRS project, global status of mapping. And you can see a small sketch of the website of this project, and you can find a lot of pieces of information. You can use many questions and find different statuses of countries as far as global mapping and other international activities. And it's a little bit problem to make a complete list. It's in fact impossible for such a short talk. So I just picked up a little bit of countries which are connected with his name. I would say Canada, of course, Argentina, India, Costa Rica, Nigeria, Zimbabwe, Guatemala, and so on and so on. And this is something which is not only traveling, as we heard up to now, but this is some activities which he presented, how to put people together. And it's a line he, I don't know, when started, probably in his childhood. And I wanted to say also something from other people to present this is not only my feeling, but feeling from other side. And I addressed Argina Novitskaya from Novosibirsk, and she addressed her colleague Igor Musichin, and they helped me. They sent me a couple of photographs. I chose just 6 of them. And then I received letter from Igor, where he expressed sincerely his relation to Gottfried. Why I am talking about Novosibirsk. Novosibirsk is a city where they organize an exposition of Geo-Siberia every year in April. And that was the place where Gottfried strengthened the relation between Russia and ISPRS. And he cooperated with Professor Antipov. You can see him on the upper left photograph. And there are 2 sentences in the letter of Igor. In the very beginning, I was shocked and nearly petrified by his way of communication and great sense of humor. Only by the end of the conference, I fell in love with this kind, sensitive and positive person. Thank you, Igor, for these words. And what does it mean, Konecny? Just to say something which is connected with my country. Gottfried Konecny was born in Czechoslovakia in Troppau. Czechoslovakia was a country which was created after the First World War and ended in 1993 by splitting into the Czech Republic and Slovak Republic. So Konecny name was originally spelled Konečný in Czech. And Konečný is an adjective that can be translated, and you can find it in Google Translator, as finite, final, terminal, definitive, ultimate, eventual, and conclusive. And what does Konecny mean for me? Finite? No, there are no limits in his activities and optimism. Final? No, he has no, and he has not said his final words. Terminal? No, in any of views from my point of view. Definitive? No, he is always open to discussion. Ultimate? No, he can see life as a development in the future and for the future. Eventual? No, everything has a continuation. Conclusive, this is something which can we connect with him. His life is a conclusive proof that he is one of the greatest personalities, not only in ISPRS, and a very good friend, and not only mine. So I must thank you, Gottfried, very much for everything you have done for everybody and for me as well. Thanks a lot, and a lot of health. Thank you.
Lena, thank you very much. That was yet a different kind of message, and it was very clear, and it was very personal, and you're certainly right, not only a friend of yours. Thank you very much for that contribution.
My pleasure.
With that, we'll come to somebody else, Laurent Polidori, who is himself an international scientist. Laurent, I'm glad you are part of this session.
Yes, thank you.
If there is a connection, the most obvious connection between Gottfried and you is perhaps your love of history and your love of history of photogrammetry. Laurent, of course, is also an active member of the organizing team of the ISPRS Congress of 2020 Nice, 2021 Nice, we'll see. Anyway, Laurent, you were talking about a partly historical topic, I guess.
That's right.
So the floor is yours. Laurent, we're listening to what you have to say.
Okay, I hope you can hear me. So, hello.
That's fine.
Good afternoon, everybody, or good morning, or good night. I'm sorry, I would have been very happy to welcome all of you in France this week, but it was not possible for the reasons we all know. However, I'm very happy to join this virtual meeting. So thank you for inviting me, and happy birthday to Gottfried. Well, Christian invited me after we met last year on the occasion of Loseda's bicentenary, when I organized a workshop in Paris and the publication of a collective book. The workshop and the book were in French, but fortunately, our president speaks French fluently, and he joined us to recall that Loseda's legacy is in fact international. We also received written contributions from Canada about Deville, from Austria about Dolejal, and an important contribution from Germany about Meidenbauer by Albrecht Grimm, because it would not be reasonable to speak of Loseda's role in the emergence of modern photogrammetry without considering the essential contribution of Meidenbauer, even if Loseda is recognized as the author of the very first photogrammetric experiment in 1861. But if we ask who is the father of photogrammetry, in fact, ISPRS is an international family, and we must be able to recognize several fathers. When Loseda began his career in military topography, the scientific and technical resources at his disposal with just two examples, which are the first photographic camera and the development of non-Euclidean geometries. These resources were, in fact, the result of a slow evolution process. And if we remember that the history of science and technology proceeds by long, continuous periods separated by steps with deep changes, then we can say that the former step was probably the Renaissance, with the discovery of new continents, with the use of mobile printing press to facilitate the dissemination of knowledge, with the decline of feudalism, inviting to rethink the question of land administration, with heliocentrism, with analytical geometry, and so on, as well as a very important innovation 4 centuries before Loseda, which is The Science of Perspective by Alberti, Brunelleschi, Dürer, and other artists. So Loseda was a figure of the Industrial Revolution. He believed in the civilizing role of science, but his period was mainly a consolidation of the legacy of the former centuries. And the next step with drastic changes was probably the decade of 1950-60, after the Second World War, not only with nuclear physics, but also with the first computers, the first satellites, the first laser instruments, and so on. And a good illustration of this convergence of innovations is maybe the simultaneous launch in 1957 of the first satellite Sputnik and the first analytical plotter for photogrammetry by Helava. And this is exactly when Gottfried Konecny began his career. And I think it is a privilege to live through such a time, because so many changes make the past and the future very different worlds. You get strong basis from traditional, well-proven methods, and you are invited to contribute to the invention of new methods. It is clear that Loseda was born too early to give the impetus for modern photogrammetry. But it will be too easy and not very honest to say that he was not supported by the French army while Meidenbauer was receiving a strong support of the imperial authorities in Germany. Because it is true, but Loseda missed some key ideas. First, by making measurements in the images one by one, he missed stereoscopy, which appeared in Pulfrich's stereo comparator 40 years later. It is also quite strange that he did not test aerial photograph in photogrammetric applications, because he was a good friend of Nadar. He identified the main difficulty of it, which was the impossible measurement of the distance between two aerial stations. But he would have needed algebraic solutions for adjustment. But he also missed this idea, which was proved essential in the history of photogrammetry. So Loseda was born too early, but other people were born in the right time to transform Loseda's primitive experiments into modern photogrammetry around 1900. And this is a seed of an international community that gave birth to the International Society a few years later. Among the international references I read on the history of photogrammetry, I found some essential contribution published by Professor Gottfried Konecny that helped me to better understand the link between the pioneering work by Loseda and Meidenbauer in the 19th century and the operational photogrammetry that became the standard method 1 century later for cartography after the Second World War. In the very last decades, photogrammetry has met some innovations like digital photography, including on a cell phone, like computer vision, like machine learning, and so on. What can we learn from history to optimize this cooperation between different technologies? For instance, we can learn to look behind appearances and to recognize that a so-called new method is only an old method which had just been improved. And this happens so many times. Professor Gottfried Konecny has published on the history, and I'm very proud to follow his example. And I really believe that our students must learn the history of the techniques they are just discovering today, to get aware that what they are learning today is just a freeze image or an instantaneous situation during a long evolutive process. It's a long evolutive process in which they will be the actors of the future steps. The lessons of our elders are essential for this, and we look forward to the next conferences and papers by Professor Gottfried Konecny. So,
thank you very much, Laurent. Merci bien. Very interesting, a different contribution to our session today. But I share your vision, of course. We should know where we come from in terms of what happened before. It's much easier to evaluate what we do and what we can do in the future that way. With that, we'll come to the future. Gottfried it's always been one of your points to not look back, but look in the front. And I'm therefore very happy to have as the last speaker, somebody who does that. He's international, as you can see from the language he's chosen for his title. And Jan, I believe you're going to explain that in a second yourself. He's also from Hanover University. And I'm very proud to say you've gone from Hanover to the world. And with that, Jan, the floor is yours. Where is photogrammetry going next?
Yeah, so thanks a lot, Christian, and thanks for inviting me also, Armin, to give this talk. It's a great pleasure to say a few words about my personal opinion, where I think where we might head in the future. And happy birthday, Gottfried Konecny. It's a great pleasure for me to have the chance to say a few words. So what's the future Quo Vadis photogrammetry? And if we think about the future, it's, as was said previously, good to look a bit at the present and look at our strength of our community. And in this sense, it's might be a good idea to look at the top publications in our field, which are those that have received this UV Hilava Award. There are many others out there, but this is a small selection. And turns out, not surprisingly, that we are very good at mapping and measuring accurately. So the 2019 paper, Design and Evaluation of Full Waveform Surface and Bottom Detection Algorithm for Light Bathymetry of Very Shallow Waters, is a typical paper from our field, where we come up with an interesting algorithm to investigate a new sensor, basically, and map something. 2018 paper is a classical, it's a mapping paper, how to map urban assets, basically, in the street. Then the overall winner of the whole decade is absolutely a paper that touches the core of our community, the bundle adjustment with the raw inertial observations and UAV applications. And then the 2016 paper is again a mapping thing. And this is something I think we should be proud of and keep in mind if we think about the future and the positioning of our society and of our community, also with respect to sister societies. Let's say the computer vision community, IEEE and so on, we can be proud of that. This is the true strength of ours, that we are good at mapping and measuring accurately. Now, a few thoughts from my side. What is the future? And this is not exhaustive, of course. I wouldn't have the time, and I will keep it short here. So something that I find absolutely astonishing and inspiring is something that is called physics-constrained or informed deep learning. So this is part of machine learning or artificial intelligence, if you will. And this is something I think will make a big splash. It has not arrived in our community yet, a bit in computer vision, a bit more in computer graphics. And this is basically something that we have been dreaming of for a long time, because this is marrying the two worlds of model-based forward modeling and data-driven approaches. So on the one side, you have a neural network, any kind of deep net architecture you can have today. And on the other hand, you have partial differential equations. And you don't have to look at the equations. They are not important in this context. But the really cool thing is that now you can really put in sophisticated prior and domain knowledge, like Navier-Stokes equations to model hydraulic fluid flow or Schrödinger equations, really put them into something that is learnable, which makes the whole process transparent. You can see what you learn, you can constrain it, and it correlates with the physical world. So it's no longer a black box, so to speak. So this is something I find very exciting. Another thing is, of course, that this new world of deep learning and AI and all the tools that we have already in our toolbox as photogrammetrists opens new ways to work on multimodal, multi-sensor, and multi-temporal data. And the interesting thing here is from my point of view, to now with all these new tools that we have in machine learning, to rethink current methods. So bundle adjustment, all of this is a good example. and combine all these different data sources at once. And this is one example of a recent publication. It's basically, instead of doing classic bundle adjustment, all of this, we can have a look at the graph convolutional neural network. So this is something learnable. Still, it can be constrained. And a lot of the sort of errors and everything that we also express and model in least squares adjustment and so on, you can view it now from a new perspective. And if you take a new perspective, there's a lot of new and cool ideas that come up, I hope. And then there's something that I find very important to mention here. And this goes beyond this one single technical idea. And I said before that we are very good at mapping and measuring accurately. And I would want to encourage us as the community and all the young people that are listening to go one step beyond that. So do not stop after measuring. Look for the underlying causal relationships for the problems you are measuring. And this is an example that my group, we are doing a joint collaboration with NASA, where we basically try to come up with a global biomass model of the Earth's surface at 10-meter resolution and basically update it on the fly. And this is the measuring part. But now I think the important questions are why and how questions. So why is deforestation happening? And this is something where you cannot just stay in your office. You have to go to the field. You have to talk to the people. And this is also a connection to Gottfried Konecny. This is what he is absolutely excellent at, and what he is teaching us to do, that to connect with the people, talk to them, and do in situ investigations. Do not stay solely on a technical level. And another question, for example, how does a changing climate impact our planet? And I believe us as photogrammetrists and we as a society, we can have a big impact in this direction. So, and in this sense, I would want to encourage everyone, let us be braver. We think across disciplines by education, a lot of us, and let us capitalize more on our strengths. So when I look at the Sustainable Development Goals, basically to all of the goals, we can say something, we can contribute something. And this is a, let's say, almost unique position of our field. There's not many other fields that come to my mind who have this position. And then I think about how come we never write nature papers, or at least maybe we submit, but we rarely get accepted. Yeah. So, and I think it could be resolved and we could make bigger impact and really capitalize more on our strength if we really focus and again, like Gottfried did in his career, to tackle problems that are of global societal relevance. So something that is really important to changing something to the better of the planet. And then a word on science diplomacy, because this is an absolutely important part. It has always been like this, but again, in today's world, I feel this is something absolutely essential. And I'm quoting Clive Fraser here, who said this. So what keeps ISPRS together, it's social, I believe. And we have seen this in past presentations. And we have seen this also in Gottfried's attitude to his work and his science, that we are not only colleagues, but we are often friends. And this is something that is mirrored in all the events that we organize. So, and this is again a very important thing that distinguishes us from, let's say, the computer vision community, because our events, they are designed to foster original research, so on a high technical level, but we also allow participation networking for those who cannot compete on that level yet. And instead of being an exclusive elite club, like some other societies are, we have this participatory philosophy. And I think this is absolutely essential, and we should keep on working on that. So in this sense, I believe we should be proud of what we have achieved and should have the courage to move on also in the same direction in the future. Because from my point of view, ISPRS contributes to a peaceful world by supporting evidence-based decision-making informed by science. So my final words here. So Quo Vadis photogrammetry. I think we should think across disciplines and should really have the courage to lead novel efforts that have global environmental and science societal impact. At the same time, I believe it would be wonderful to give more responsibilities to younger scientists at earlier stages of their career already, because most of the ideas and the most creative, it's them. It's the younger scientists, and they are our future. So keep investing in sharing scientific progress and expanding our network. And in this sense, I would wish we could include more women in our community, more Africa, more Latin America, and more Asia to really achieve our goals. And finally, let us be brave and think big with our society and our community. How can we improve the state of the world? So thanks a lot for listening.
Thank you very much, Jan. I'm prompted to say we should continue doing what Gottfried told us and taught us to do for the last 75 years. And I think you put it in very, very right words and very good examples. So this brings the formal part to an end. I have a program, which you may not have, where it says music second part. And then it says something none of you have on your program, and I called it family block. Now we'll give it another try with the music. We were maybe not that successful in the first go, but we don't give up, right? We try again. And the family block can get ready to start already.
Most
Now, just in case the people of the English-speaking world didn't quite understand what was going on, I take the liberty here to let you Okay, that was the IPI happy birthday gift to you, Gottfried. I hope you liked it. We sure wish you a very long and happy continuation of your life. With that, now comes the family block.
Christian, this is Gottfried. I think I'm supposed to say a few words as a family member. First of all, thank you for arranging this meeting. It means very much to me and our family because of the current COVID pandemic. We are not able to travel. Me from California and my sister from England, and we're not able to celebrate this special day with our beloved parents. A 90th birthday is something extremely special, and I'm very grateful for this. But I'm also very moved by how his colleagues and his friends have shared his visions of how he has lived his life. And as a child, I'm very surprised to see that you've recognized the same traits that I think my father has implemented into us in educating us. And one of the main things is that he's taught us to accept and love anything that's different, any different cultures, any different race, any different belief, and the ability to connect people. And this has been expressed by the many speeches I've heard today. I have tried to live a life in a similar way. Maybe that's the reason why we ended up being in different corners of the world, in California and England and not in Germany, because he's led us to appreciate the differences and the variety that's out there. Clearly, I've met many of you on the call as a child already at other ISPRS meetings. I know Armin Grün, Larry Fritz, and I apologize, I'm not speaking to you as professors or doctors, but I know you as a little kid. Shunji Murai, and also many photos that I've seen, and I've really congratulate your society to building this team spirit of building an international network, which I try to copy in my field of medicine, which isn't that easy. But it's been an honor to be participating. And you can see in the next slide, I think Sophia could advance that, that one of the bottom lines is truly his travel craziness, which, you know, it's sometimes also a burden for the family, particularly from my mother, but clearly it has left a strong footprint on us as children to try and continue in his legacy, not in photogrammetry, but in different fields and different professional fields. And Christian and audience here, I thank you very much for allowing us to participate. Thanks very much. And I think I'll pass over to Sophia now.
Oh, yes. Okay, we're on my slide now. Let's go back one. Can we go back? Yes, very good. Hi, everyone. I'm Sophia. And as the granddaughter, I'd just like to take this time just to say a few very brief words. And firstly, thank you so much for all the presentations, because I have learned a lot, particularly about zip wiring backwards in Brazil. a lot of new stories there. So I just wanted to very briefly share some of my most memorable experiences with my grandpa. And I wanted to mention that a few years ago, my grandpa and I started an annual trip to Siberia, to the Geo-Siberia conference there in Novosibirsk, where we were very warmly welcomed by Argina and Igor, who I can see are here with us today. And on this trip, over the years, I would accompany Grandpa to the conference and would hear him give his presentation, always making people laugh, as everyone knows very well by now. And I would also listen to presentations on things like forest administration and satellite images of craters in Canada and change documentation in the Altai grasslands. But I have to say that my favorite probably was a presentation on the development of change detection algorithms between multi-temporal point clouds. And that was only a subheading. But I have to say that the highlight of my week perhaps was what was known as the banquet, where we were welcomed into a room at the Expo Center, which was full with colorful platters of fish and meat and fruit and cheeses and salads and vodka bottles, very many vodka bottles. And banquet really was no exaggeration here. And all of this, I think, was so characteristic of that very Russian generosity, which many of you will be well acquainted with. And at this banquet, there were singers and dancers performing live ABBA hits in shiny outfits. And there were speeches and toasts made by the rector of the university in Novosibirsk and fellow scientists, of course, with the length of the speeches, of course, in direct correlation with the amount of vodka consumed. And at one point, I remember that we had barely finished the starter of this banquet, and half of the room was already up on its feet, shaking hips and tapping toes and dancing to the live music. And I remember being laughed at by a group of scientists at the table at which I was sitting with Granddad for discouraging my granddad from drinking, he was 87 at the time, from drinking his 5th vodka shot of the evening. And he drank it anyway, of course. And we stood up and I remember just dancing to the music and Grandpa using his walking stick as a dance accessory. So those were just a few of some very valuable memories that I've had with Grandpa over the years. And just to finish now, I wanted to say that from the perspective of a grandchild, I think I've been extremely fortunate to have a grandfather who really and truly has opened my eyes to living a life in which I want to contribute to the world in a positive and meaningful way, very much in the way that he has done, albeit in a different field. And I think Grandpa has inspired me definitely to travel and to connect with many different cultures and to always keep an open mind. And most of all, to always keep a very cheeky sense of humor. So happy birthday, 40, and thank you so much for everyone else's presentations. I'm going to hand over to my mom now.
Okay. It's so nice to see so many familiar faces on this very special day for our family. Thank you, thank you, thank you from the bottom of our heart. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about travels in life with my father. If I would attribute a characteristic to my father, it would be the words, Once a year, go somewhere you have never been before. When I was a child, we had a world map on the wall in his study with little flags marking the countries that my father had visited. Each year, the flags became more until there were almost as many flags as countries. So far, he's made it to around 170, I think. It was obvious from early on that as children, we learned to walk through the world with open eyes, to embrace curiosity, tolerance, humility, and to see the world from the perspective of a cross-cultural and deep global citizen. For as one's destination is never a place, but a new way of seeing things. I thank my father for opening my eyes to the wondrous things, for sparking my inquisitiveness, paving the way for novel approaches, challenging the status quo, and an analytical approach to problem solving. And with all that, for teaching me literally to reach for the stars and the moon. This became clear when he attended my own graduation 2 years ago in Oxford. Our childhood felt something like that out of a Tintin adventures book, especially growing up in Texas, where my father made a significant contribution to NASA, flying men to the moon. Although none of us children followed his photogrammetric footsteps, my brother chose medicine and I business and art and design. I did, however, manage to combine our two worlds. This was in 1999. Sophia and I were living in Moscow, and I worked on the launch of Vogue magazine in Russia. We had to come up with a unique issue representing Russia's transition to the new millennium when my father suggested I attend a private tour of Star City, the training center and home of Yuri Gagarin, along with his other esteemed professor colleagues. The result was a historical photo shoot with second-generation cosmonauts that delighted the scientists, generals, and press alike. From my father, I learned to persevere, to be resilient, to be curious, to be creative, and above all, to take what comes with a pinch of humor. For we cannot discover new oceans unless we have the courage to lose sight of the shore. Thank you, Dad. You're simply the best. I love you to the moon and back.
Oh, thank you, everyone. Yeah. Thank you.
We are already well into the unofficial program and have left the official one, but then there is no real boundary between the official and the unofficial, the social one. There may be people who want to say a few words. It would be time to do so now. Either you are what's called panelists already, or you can ask Cheryl, our host, to promote you to be panelists so that you can be heard. On the other hand, this is a very nice picture. We can look at it for a while before turning over to somebody else. Katrina, would you want to stop sharing your screen? Thank you.
Gerlinde, I think you're saying something, but you're on mute.
Exactly, yes.
Gerlinde, you have to unmute the button, sorry.
Alert from System UI server. Low battery.
Thanks for that quote.
Christian, I think Erlinda is trying to say something, but it's muted, so I don't know
I'm
if she...
seeing that. Can you send her a personal chat? Maybe she's reading that. Oh,
is it now? Is it
Yes.
all right?
yes, it is. Go ahead, please.
Oh, thank you for participation in this big party. We all in the family are very proud of my big brother. Congratulations. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye,
Okay.
Erlinda.
Thank you very much.
What?
You're about to say something, just jump on the occasion right now. Well, for me.
No.
No. You can say something.
Christian, I'm not sure what's happening, but can I say a word?
Absolutely. The floor is yours. I don't know what's happening either, but I'm listening to you, Ian.
Gottfried, happy birthday.
Yes, happy birthday, Gottfried.
I'd just like to thank you for all the inspiration you've given me over the years, starting with the metric camera working group back in the 1970s. I have very happy memories of that days, and we've had many good cooperation since. So thank you very much, and I hope we see you around for many more years.
And you're a good example to follow for him, not me.
Dad, you have to unmute.
Oh,
Dad,
he has to unmute, yes.
Papa, you have to unmute, then we can hear you. It's the microphone on the bottom.
Unten links, Gottfried.
Unten links ist eine Videokamera und ein Mikrofon. Und du musst das Mikrofon anklicken, dann ist das Mikrofon freigeschaltet. Ja, jetzt hören wir dich. Super.
Okay. Is it my time right now to thank you all?
You can.
If that's what you decide it is, then this is what it is.
Well, I think it became very clear that this meeting, the arrangement of this meeting, has overwhelmingly been done by Christian Heipke, who together with Armin Grün have arranged the sequence of speakers, and to Cheryl Rose to have the administrative platform over here. I owe them all sincere thanks of making this big surprise to me. You have seen from the members of my family, it was very nice that they have been able to participate also. I owe my deep thanks to all the speakers of today. And I do hope that we will see each other in the year in July 2021. I need to thank Christian for a new look on what I did in my career. As far as Armin is concerned, to talking about and to Shunji, the philosophical approaches that we have all had, elephants and crocodiles, and then the White Elephant Club, and to Laurie Fritz on the high resolution cameras, to Li Deren, to our experiences with China, and the many meetings that we had, particularly the last one, in Guilin and our close cooperation in China. In fact, right now in our discipline, in geoinformatics, in photogrammetry, China has made big jumps right now in progress of our own discipline. We respect them for the work that he has done, and the biggest outcome of that has been, of course, the use of the stereo satellites in China, which is thanks to Li Ren, and also to doing the practical work with them with the high mountain peaks by Zhang Jie. I'm very glad that she is represented here by China. And I also thank Lena Halonova for remembering our cooperation, particularly the one at ISPRS, and to the other members whom I did not know so well, to Laurent Polidori, for the context of the history in which we are, and to Jan Dirk Wegener for opening up his thoughts on the future, which we're going to have.
Although she was on there.
In retrospect, I consider myself very lucky.
No, it's not there.
I survived World War I, World War II, and then afterwards the resettlement in Germany. Things that we own to the peace treaty in Potsdam. And then I studied surveying, and I received a Fulbright scholarship from the US government for studies in photogrammetry. And this opened my mind to the world, taking me to Canada for 12 years. Canada, a very positive country where my children were raised before beginning a new career in Germany and being able to develop friends within ISPRS, taking me to more than 100 countries and reaching the incredible age of 90 years. I learned a lot about the cultures of China, of Japan, and finally India, where the 15 centuries old Quran was written in the style of the Vedas. It has told me, do not think about your past achievements, but think of what you can do for society today. And when I heard the words of all today's speakers at this Zoom session, I'm reminded that as a handicapped 90-year-old, is very little that I can do for society today, except to express my thanks to all the good thoughts expressed today and for having developed friendships throughout ISPRS, which I am very grateful. And I have received so many good wishes now that it will take me weeks to answer them all. They came from Germany, from China, from Czech Republic, and from my family. And hopefully we will see each other at the ISPRS Congress in Nice in July 2021. Thank you very much for being here today. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Under normal circumstances, this would be the time to have a drink for your health for many more years and keep us inspiring and the whole community. So, Prost.
Prost. We'll do that in Nice next year, hopefully.
Yes, exactly. Next year we will have our Mau Tai, right?
That's right. Thank you.
Glass of red wine.
I'll bring some more time. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Christian?
Thank you very much. That brings our session to an end. I'd like to thank everybody involved. I'd like to thank, first of all, Cheryl for hosting us. The experience of the ISPRS Student Consortium is invaluable in doing things like that. If I hadn't known that before, I have come to understand this even during the session today. I'm not sure how many of these technical details you have cleared out for us, Cheryl, and of course, the whole Student Consortium. But I think one of the wisest decisions we have taken is to involve you in realizing this whole thing. Obviously, thanks very much for all the contributors. Gottfried, you have said that already. I'm not going to repeat it. It's been good talking to you. It's been good working with you. And I'd like to say a very special thank you to the IPI team as well. I hope you had the possibility to enjoy some of what we have been doing before. Obviously, we have misused this occasion a little bit in order to bring about a project to keep the whole group together in these strange times. It has worked well. We had pleasure putting something together for your birthday, and we had fun doing so. So I'd like to extend a very special welcome and a very special thank you to the IPI team as well. And Charles, I share your concern. We all need to have a drink now. We can't have it together, but still, we'll try.
Question, may I ask a question?
Sure.
Yes, hello?
We can hear you.
Go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I wanted to ask, this session was really wonderful. And if we can reflect on it, I think it has been put on records by...
Recorded, you mean?
By Cheryl, recorded, yeah.
It has been recorded, yes.
Yes, then...
We'll share the link soon after.
That would be very, very, very nice. So many pictures, then we can reflect upon that. And you will wonder, Liesel, my wife, who wrote me a very nice letter today, she was unable to hear it because she has hearing problems. And for her, I would like to have this recording. Thank you very much.
We'll make sure we'll get it to you. Thanks very much. So that's the end. Okay. Let's all go back to sleep, to work, to coffee, to whatever, whatever time zone you're in. Thank you. And see you in Nice in about 12 months' time. Right?
Yeah, see you in Nice. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Happy birthday again.
Thank you all. Thank you all.
Happy birthday. Bye.
And have a good time, Gottfried, the coming days.